Hey gang, Pat Bourgeois with RAVEK for another install, and today is going to be a good one. We'll be installing the Apex Street Legal Kit on our Can-Am Maverick X3. Now, this was a little bit more intense, but I know you can get it done. And of course, when it's all done, these incredibly intense and durable Apex lights are going to make your ride shine like a bee. So let's get after it. All right, first step of our install is we have to remove the passenger seat on this X3. To do that, you're going to want your 13mm socket and driver on a 3/8" drive, as well as a 13mm wrench to remove these front bolts. Pretty straightforward. One on each side of these tubes. We'll loosen these up, pull these out of the way. All right, with the front bolts out of the way, we'll have to remove the rear bolts. That is by flipping up the seat. And here I prefer to get the larger 1/2" drive with the 18mm socket and the extension so you can reach those bolts down through the openings in the seat. All right, with the bolts removed, passenger seat is free and we can pick it up and get it out of the way. You'll notice the seat belt is still attached, but we can pull up some slack here. We should be able to set it down and get it out of our way. Now we've got a lot more room to work. Next step to access the bus bar is we remove this panel here. And that's very simple. It's just popped in. So we're gonna grab it, give it a good pull, set it out of the way. Next step is to install our power harness. In order to do that, we're gonna want our 10mm 1/4" drive and ratchet. And of course the harness, we're gonna be installing it onto the bus bar. Now, on this Maverick, the bottom terminal on the bus bar is our keyed positive, and then the top one is negative. So we're going to want to attach it to this bottom terminal here and the top one. 10mm socket. Take our red wire, which is our positive, to the switched ignition location of the bus bar here. Get that nut started, and then negative on the top. So there's our power harness. Our next step is going to take our extension harness and connect it to our power harness and go up to where we're going to mount our lights. Now for clarity in this video for installation, I'm going to do most of our connections to our controller out here in the open so you can see clearly all of the connections that need to be made. But when you're doing your install, we recommend that you identify a position where you're going to mount this controller. Now on the Maverick, we like to do it up underneath the console. There's a nice clean area under there, and we'll show that in a little bit. So get your controller position in that area, route your wires accordingly, and then make the connections. But for this video, I'm going to make these connections right out here in the open. So the next step after our power harness has been attached to the ring terminal is to start making those connections. One of the first connections you're going to make is the actual power itself into our controller. Now each of these lines on the power harness and on all of our wiring in the Apex kit are labeled. You'll see power in, so you'll identify it also on the controller, are all labeled on the outside of the controller. So we'll attach our power in to the power in on our controller. Next, we're going to attach the horn from our power, also labeled, to our controller. And this labeling is what makes this Apex Street Legal Kit so easy to install. All right, with power to our controller, got the horn connection made, we're going to start running our extension harnesses from the controller to the external portions of the vehicle. One of the first ones that we're going to do is to the horn. Now, your horn extension harness has 2 spade ends and then the watertight plug end. Spade ends go to your horn. We recommend mounting this horn somewhere outside the cab. It is pretty loud, so find a location up there. We're going to plug this into the controller and then go through our firewall, through the boot and the firewall, up to our mounting location for the horn. On this harness, you're going to see horn extension, as well as horn on the horn extension power harness. Plug those two together. And again, like I say on all of our installation videos, I like to recommend that you route all these wires loosely. Make sure you get them away from anything hot, anything turning. Make sure everything works, and then come back in and tidy it up with zip ties, etc. So I'll get this routed to the firewall. We'll go to installing our horn next. All right, I've identified my location where I want to mount the horn. Conveniently, Can-Am has some accessory mounting locations on this frame rail that are already threaded with inserts. So I'm going to mount my horn right here, be perfect. And the horn extension harness is going to come through this boot in the firewall right here. So I'm going to go in from the driver's side and feed that harness through this boot and get it up into position for my horn. All right, I've got my wire fed through that boot. Pull a little extra out here so we can make our connection. On the horn itself, 2 spade connectors on the back. It does not matter which spade goes to which. We'll make our connections. And then I'm going to mount my horn right here. And then once it's mounted in place, I'll take care of that excess slack and start to secure those wires once I know everything is working. My horn in position here, just get it secure. Like that. Again, I'll go in there and pull back some of these wires. When everything's secured and operating properly, we'll clean them up with some zip ties. All right, our next step is to install our rear extension harness, one for each side, driver and passenger. They're both going to plug into our controller that is labeled rear brake lights. You'll see that there are 2 connections on the controller for those. And we're going to route these right through the center console where all our factory wiring harness is going, right through here, and I'll show you from the other side what that looks like. Also, be routing this brake input line. That's this red one right here. This is going to give the signal when the brakes are applied, and included in your RAVEK Apex street legal kit is this wire loom. We recommend that you route this signal line through the wire loom to protect it. So we'll get started on running these wires through here and then make our connections. All right, I've routed my rear extension lines to both sides. I've also routed the brake input line. It's now time to install our TY harness between the factory harness and the lines we just ran. These are all labeled from RAVEK. This is our rear left, as well as our TY harness has that as well, rear left, we'll make that connection. Our brake line input connection will be next. Now you notice there's some additional connections on this TY harness. The 2 spade connectors are going to go to our illuminated license plate that are included in the kit. And you'll also notice this additional connection. This is so you can add rear apex lights to your street legal kit. All you gotta do is buy the lights, plug and play. So now we'll plug in our TY harness into our factory harness. And then this part of the TY harness will go back up into our tail light. Again, once everything's connected, everything is working properly, I will come back in here and clean up all these wires. All right, I came around over to the passenger side to install our TY harness here as well. A little bit simpler connections on this one. We don't have the input line or our illuminated license plate. So our rear extension will make that connection. Again, we have the accessory line here for easily adding apex lights. We'll plug our TY into our factory harness, and then our TY into the rear brake light assembly. Again, I'm going to make sure everything works properly. I've got the wire routed where I want it, but then I'm going to come back in and clean this up, add in my zip ties, make sure it's touching nothing hot or moving. All right, the next step of our RAVEK Apex Street Legal Kit is to move to the front of our X3 and install the Apex lights. Now, you've heard me talk about Apex lights, how much I love them because they're incredibly bright, they're incredibly durable, and they're incredibly easy to install. And the versatility of installation is what makes them truly unique. Now, there are 3 ways to install an Apex light. They can be surface mounted, they can be tube mounted, or you can use the more premium drill mount method. Let's take a look at all 3. I'm going to show you the 3 different ways to mount Apex lights to your vehicle. Roll bar mount with a strap, flush mount with adhesive, and flush mount with a screw in. Now, to mount your Apex lights to a tube or a roll bar, I'm going to show you the steps. And notice we get your Apex lights flat back. Included in the kit is this beveled back. We'll want to attach this to the Apex light. You can orient your wire on either side, depending on where you're mounting it. And this beveled back, it'll only go on one way. It is tapered. You kind of feel it lock into place. When it's in place, grab your short panhead screws and secure it to the back of the Apex light. Now, when you mount an Apex light to a round tube, we recommend using a combination of the strap and the 2-sided tape. So to attach our 2-sided tape, there's a non-branded side and a branded side. The non-branded side will go against your Apex light. But before we do that, we want to make sure our surface areas are clean. So you're going to first grab your alcohol wipe, and we're going to give our Apex light a quick wipe. And you'll also wipe whatever surface area you're going to be mounting the light to as well. We'll let that dry a little bit. Grab your primer wipe. You're going to repeat the process on our Apex light and also on the surface area you'll be mounting it to. Now your surface areas are ready for maximum adhesion of this 2-sided tape. Again, blank side against the Apex light. What I like to do is just start the back in a little bit. This will allow me to get it lined up and not have it looking wonky when you're done. So if it's looking good, you can just peel back that backing tape and give it a good squeeze. Now I'm ready to mount this light to our tube. Now with my backing tape applied to my beveled plate, it's time to mount the Apex light to my round tube. I'm going to mount it up high on this tube right here. And just how I applied the backing tape to the Apex light, we'll do the same process to the roll tube. So get it started. I like to always work top down. Peel back a little like this. Now I'm going to go just below this well, but wherever you're mounting it, get it started, and then grab that backing tape and peel back. That way you can keep it straight all the way back. Add a good squeeze. And with round tube mounting, although this 3M 2-sided tape is extremely durable, I mean, you can see that. For added security, we'll take our straps, go through the slot, around the tube, strapped in place. Now my Apex light is secured to the roll bar. All that's left to do is plug it in, see if it works. Nice. And we'll check our flash modulator. Beautiful. It's that easy, kids. 500 times brighter than your standard razor light. Now all that's left to do is come back in with some zip ties, route this wire so it's not touching anything hot or anything moving, and we're good to go. All right, here are the steps to screw mount your Apex lights to your vehicle. Now we happen to be using a Polaris razor, but the process is the same no matter your vehicle. Once you determine where you're going to mount the Apex light, first step, clean the surface area. So we got our alcoholic swab. You'll notice, looks like we've already had something mounted here. That's because we have. We've been durability testing these Apex lights on this razor all season long. And so we're gonna pretend those holes aren't there. Next step, take our primer pad and prime the area. Then we'll go to our two-sided tape. We recommend, again, two forms of fastening this. You're gonna use the tape as well as the screws. Nice thing about the tape, these holes are gonna serve as your pilot holes to drill through the material. Remember, non-branded side will go against our Apex lights, so the branded side will go against the vehicle. Make sure it's oriented correctly. If you want your lights, the wide part at the top, wide part of the tape should be at the top, and vice versa. That's how I'm gonna mount this one. Our surface area is clean. Again, I like to start at the top. And if you want, you can place your tape on your vehicle and make a few marks so it is square or lined up exactly where you want it. There we go. Make it easier so it's nice and square. Now, this will serve as your template to drill your holes. Our holes are already there, so we'll pretend I drilled them. Next, take your Apex light. Your 11/32 inch or the larger hole will be where you route your wire. The smaller hole, the 1/4 inch, will be where you secure it with the fastener. So the tolerances are just right. Push our wire through. There we go. Once that's looking good, I can peel this tape off. And a little piece there in the way. Get it lined up. Now, what I like to do now is grab my fastener and route that through the back side before I put the light in place. It just helps me see everything that's going on. I like to get my fastener through the hole, and that's gonna help guide my Apex light onto the two-sided tape. Otherwise, if you put your light down on the tape before your fastener's in place, you may have struggle getting it started. Now, my fastener's started, I'm on the tape, I'm square, give that a good push. Now I can grab my 4mm from the backside and secure it. Remember to put your fender washer on the backside. Give it a few turns, get it snug. That'll cinch our Apex light down to that two-sided tape. And we are ready to plug it in, give it a test. Nice clean install, means that's not going anywhere. We'll plug it in. Nice. We have modulator in line. Got the flash. There you have it. Surface mount Apex lights with the screw-in method. Now, another way to install Apex lights is a flat surface mount using just the two-sided tape, no screws. Just a quick, easy way to do it. If you got a place where routing the wire, you can kind of hide it nice, makes sense. It's a perfect way to do it. All right, to do this, pretty simple. First thing you want to do is you want to take your alcohol wipe, just clean up the light assembly itself, and given that it's probably new, it's pretty clean. And then you're also going to want to take this alcohol wipe and clean whatever surface of the vehicle you're going to be mounting it to. All right. Once that's done, you're going to take your promoter or your primer wipe. This is going to, as it sounds, promote better adhesion. So do the same to your light and the same to your surface area. Once that's done, you're going to thread your two-sided tape through your wire harness here from the Apex light. There's two holes you can line it up, you'll see on your Apex light. One hole is for mounting, one hole is for the wiring harness. Again, your tape is tapered, it'll only go on there one way, and you'll want to use the non-branded side against the light as such. So I'll peel back the backing tape, stick this to my light, peel the tape off again, adhere it to the vehicle. And it can be a little tricky with the wire in there. What I like to do is get it started like this, peel back a portion of it, get it square. And then kind of rip it right around that wire coming from the apex light. And get it lined up, give it a good press, and now we are ready to install this light on any flat surface you choose. And I'm going to position it right here. I'm going to run the wire down below the fender lip and connect it to the harness. So before I do, I want to take my alcohol wipe. You clean up the surface a little bit, especially if you got like Armor All or something on there that you've been cleaning your vehicle. Now to apply the apex light surface mount to the vehicle, I'm going to again put it right here. I've cleaned this surface area with my alcohol wipe and my primer. I've got my two-sided tape attached to my apex light. I've peeled back the backing tape part way so I can handle it on the backside without getting all sticky. Get my light lined up where I want it. It's centered. Once it's all in place, I could peel the rest of the backing tape away. My tape removed, give it a good push. And now before I button everything up and get my wires routed cleanly, I think it's time to give it a test first. As AC/DC said on Let There Be Rock, let there be light. 300% more light to be accurate. That is gonna look sick. Well, there you have it, 3 great ways to install the apex light. I personally chose the drill surface mount on our X3. I think it looks great. It's a very clean installation. Put it right up here on the fender. So with the apex lights mounted, our next step is to install our front extension harnesses. Just like the rear, these are labeled left or right. These are gonna go from our controller through the firewall up to our apex lights. And I'll show you where they are routed on the firewall next. Here's the location on the firewall where we're gonna want to route our extension wires. There's a boot right here. It's easier actually to start our wires from this side of the firewall, outside of the cab, and push them through. You can use a hook to help guide the wire through, or better yet, if you got a buddy to come over and help you pull these wires through. So I've got front right and front left. I'm over here on the passenger side, so I'm gonna grab the right one, pull that in a little bit more. Once I make this connection to my apex light, I'm gonna route this wire up under here and get it all cleaned up. But for now, I always say I like to make these connections, make sure everything is working properly. So again, these are all labeled, front right, the front right apex light, make that connection. I'll grab that other wire there, pull to the other side and connect that apex light as well. And then we'll go inside the cab and start making our connections to our controller. Next step of our installation is to install our rocker switches. Now, in order to do that, you're going to find a place on the dash. You have some openings. On this particular X3, we have 2 right above the key fob. I've already pushed one out so I can show you how to get out these caps. In order to do that, you'll see on the ends, you're just going to squeeze them together and then give them a push. They're a snug fit, but if you squeeze and do a little wiggling, you can get it out. We'll take out our second one, like so. All right, next step is to install our switch harnesses. Now, we've given you plenty of cable here. This is the portion that's going to be attached to the rocker switch itself. This one will go to our controller. We want to feed the controller end through the front side of the dash, route the wire appropriately, take up any excess, get that down by the controller, and then we'll install the switch. Again, these harnesses are labeled specifically for the switch. You'll notice on this one, turn switch. I'm going to put my turn switch here where it's more accessible on the right-hand side. So we'll just feed that through. We'll do the same with the other side, get the wires where we need them to be, and then we'll come in, make our connections to our rocker switches, and put those in place. All right, I have our switch harnesses routed. Now it's time to install our rocker switches. Now, when you plug these into the harnesses, they only align one way. Don't force it. So make sure you get it lined up properly. Once you do, they'll click into place. I'll do the same for my turn rocker. And then to install, guide it in, give it a good push. What I like to do is push in the center, not on the top or bottom. You sometimes can damage the switch just like that. All right, remove the 4 screws securing the gauge cluster using a T20 Torx. Remove the faceplate and set out of the way. Next, push the plastic retaining clip at the bottom upward to remove the gauge cluster. Now, orient the cluster to access the factory harness and remove the harness by sliding the red tab up and pushing in on the retention clip while pulling the connector away from the cluster. Next, by using a precision tip screwdriver, pry the retainer outward in order to remove the white pin alignment clip. With the alignment clip removed, you now have access to the Molex pin connectors. Rotate the connector so the red tab is facing towards you and up. Using the same precision tip screwdriver, remove the 7th white plastic pins, counting from left to right, on the top and bottom rows of the connector. Now it's time to connect the left and right turn signal indicator harnesses included in the Apex turn signal kit to the factory connector. Start by inserting the right turn signal indicator pin into the Molex opening we just created on the red tab side of the connector. Repeat this procedure with the left turn signal indicator pin using the other Molex opening we just created. Be sure the pins are oriented in the same manner as the factory pins in the connector and are fully seated in the connection. You should be able to hear or feel the pin when fully seated. With the pins installed, replace the white plastic keeper into the factory connection. Push until you feel a click. Now it's time to reinstall your gauge cluster. First, route both signal indicator wires along the same path of the factory harness. Then align the factory harness connector with the gauge cluster, reconnect, and lock into place by pushing the red tab forward. Reinstall the gauge cluster, faceplate, and the 4 T20 Torx head screws. All right, with all of our connections made to the external portions of the vehicle, we're ready to come back to our controller and make our final connections here. Now again, remember, we're doing these connections with our controller out here in this nice open space underneath the passenger seat, so you can see how these connections are made, but this controller will actually be housed up underneath the center console, so it's clean and out of the way, but we're doing it down here right now so you can see these connections being made. So let's start with our rear light connections. Remember, everything is labeled right and left. So onto our control box here, we'll do our right. Each of these connections, you want to push until you hear a click. Next, I'm going to do our rocker switches. We have the hazard horn switch as well as the turn signal switch. These are labeled as well. There's our hazard switch. We'll go here. And our turn signal. And then lastly, we'll make our connections to our front apex lights. And in doing so, we'll first want to take our indicator lights from the gauge cluster. Those will go into our controller box first. Again, all labeled front left. Get that front left here out of the controller. Get that connection. Grab my other one. That'll be the right indicator into the controller. And then off of these indicators, we'll actually connect our apex lights. So here's front left to front left. And front right to front right. And again, I've said it 1,000 times, but lots of extra wires right now. I like to connect everything, make sure it's working, all my connections are sound and solid. Then I'll return and start cleaning up my wiring, bundling it, getting some zip ties, making sure nothing's touching anything hot or moving. So with all our connections made, I think we're ready to test. All right, make my final connections with my apex lights into my indicator wires. We should have everything connected to our controller and ready to test out the system. Now remember, I did all of this out here in the open so you can see all the connections are made. This controller will actually be housed up underneath the center console, but this makes it nice and easy for you to see how these connections are come together at the controller box. So with that, let's test it out. Got my key in. Apex lights are on. That's awesome. We'll try turn signal to the right. Working good. You'll notice how the apex light turns from clear to amber. My indicator is also going. We'll go the other direction. That is also working. Awesome. Try out our hazards. Beautiful. And last, my favorite part, the horn. Yeah. That's annoying. I love it. Well, there you have it. Man, the Apex turn signal kit is awesome. Takes a little bit of time to install. If you take your time, follow this video, you shouldn't have any problems at all.